In a quiet coastal town where most folks mind their own business, a retired Navy SEAL has spent years trying to forget the man he used to be. His days are simple now, predictable, far removed from the chaos of his past life. But one rainy night, everything changes when a terrified little girl pounds on his door with 3 desperate words, "They took my mom." At first he wants no part of it. He's done with that world, done with the violence and the danger. But something in her eyes won't let him turn away. What happens when a man who's trained to be a ghost steps back into the light to face a ruthless criminal organization? Can one person truly make a difference when evil comes knocking? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Jack Reeves had learned long ago that the best way to disappear was to hide in plain sight. At 52, he looked like any other aging fisherman in Crescent Bay, Oregon. Weathered skin, calloused hands, a body that still carried the ghost of military discipline beneath layers of deliberate ordinariness. He wore flannel shirts and faded jeans, drove a rusted Ford pickup, and kept his grey hair just long enough to avoid the military cut that might draw questions. Every morning began the same way. He'd wake before dawn in his cabin on the outskirts of town, a simple structure of weathered pine and river stone that sat alone on 5 acres of Douglas fir and silence. The cabin had been a foreclosure when he bought it 6 years ago, and he'd fixed it up himself. New roof, solid door, windows that locked tight. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. No television, no internet. A radio for emergencies and a landline phone he rarely answered. By 6, he'd be at Miller's Coffee House on Main Street, a converted Victorian with creaking floors and the smell of fresh ground beans. He always sat at the same table near the back window, always ordered the same thing: black coffee, scrambled eggs, wheat toast. The waitress, a kind woman named Deb, who'd been working there for 30 years, knew better than to make small talk beyond the basics. "Morning, Jack. Morning, Deb. Usual? Please." That was the extent of it. He'd eat slowly, watching the town wake up through the window, fishermen heading to the docks, shop owners unlocking doors, the occasional tourist looking lost with a map. Crescent Bay was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, except for Jack. He was polite enough that people didn't pry, distant enough that they didn't try to befriend him. After breakfast, he'd walk to Carson's Hardware, where he'd pick up whatever supplies he needed: nails, sandpaper, paint. Bill Carson, who owned the place, treated him with the same respectful distance as everyone else. Jack paid cash, spoke only when necessary, and left without lingering. The townspeople had their theories, of course. He'd overheard them over the years: divorced and heartbroken, failed businessmen starting over, writer seeking isolation. None of them guessed the truth, and that was exactly how he wanted it. The scars on his body told a different story. The puckered bullet wound on his left shoulder, the knife scar across his ribs, the damaged cartilage in his right knee that made him limp slightly when it rained. But those stories stayed hidden beneath long sleeves and careful movements. His cabin was spartanly furnished: a bed with military corners, a wooden table with 2 chairs, though he never had visitors. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with worn paperbacks, history, philosophy, some fiction. On his desk sat a locked drawer, and in that drawer, buried beneath old tax returns and forgotten receipts, was a tarnished silver trident pin, the Navy SEAL insignia. He hadn't looked at it in 3 years. The pin represented everything he'd tried to leave behind: 26 years of service, deployments to places that didn't officially exist, missions that would never be declassified. He'd been good at it, too good. They'd called him Ghost because he could slip in and out of hostile territory without leaving a trace. He'd saved lives. He'd also taken them, more than he could count, more than he wanted to remember. The breaking point had come on his last mission: Afghanistan, a compound in the mountains, a high-value target. Everything had gone according to plan until it hadn't. He still saw the boy's face sometimes when he closed his eyes. 14, maybe 15, wrong place, wrong time. The investigation cleared him. rules of engagement, split-second decision, unavoidable tragedy. But Jack knew better. He'd missed something. His instincts had failed, and a kid had paid the price. So he'd retired, taken his pension and his scars and his guilt, and come to this forgotten corner of Oregon to fade away. He told himself he was seeking peace. Most days, he almost believed it. The PTSD was manageable now. Loud noises still made him flinch. Crowds made his palms sweat. He slept with a hunting knife under his pillow and checked the door locks 3 times before bed. But he'd learned to live with it, the way you learn to live with a bad back or failing eyesight. His afternoons were spent working on the cabin. There was always something to fix, or hiking the trails that wound through the coastal forest. The trees were old here, massive Sitka spruce and western hemlock that blocked out the sky. He'd walk for hours, listening to the silence, trying to find something like forgiveness in the rhythm of his footsteps. He had no friends, no relationships, no ties to anyone or anything. That was safer for everyone. He'd seen what happened when men like him tried to live normal lives. The violence followed them, the nightmares infected the people they loved. Better to be alone. Martha was the closest thing he had to a connection. She lived a quarter-mile down the road, a widow in her 70s who'd been an army nurse in Vietnam. She understood silence and never asked questions he couldn't answer. Once a month she'd bring him a casserole. Once a month he'd fix something around her house. They spoke maybe 50 words total during these exchanges, and that suited them both fine. That was Jack Reeves's life. Simple, quiet, controlled, and he told himself every single day that this was enough. Sarah Chen had come to Crescent Bay 3 years ago with a daughter, 2 suitcases, and secrets she prayed would stay buried. She was 34 then, young enough to start over but old enough to know that running solved nothing. Still, sometimes running was all you had. Her apartment was on the 2nd floor of a converted fishery building near the marina, small but clean, with windows that looked out over the water. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with yellow linoleum that had seen better decades, a bathroom where the pipes clanged when you turned on the shower. The rent was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask questions when she paid cash for the first 3 months. That was all she needed. Emma was 5 when they arrived. She was 8 now, small for her age but sharp as a tack. She had her mother's dark hair and delicate features, but her eyes held something older, a wariness that children shouldn't possess. She'd learned early that the world wasn't always safe, that sometimes you had to leave in the middle of the night, that questions about where Daddy was or why they moved so much were better left unasked. Sarah worked at the Crescent Bay Medical Clinic as a nurse practitioner. She was good at her job, steady hands, calm demeanor, the kind of presence that made patients trust her. Dr. Novak, who ran the clinic, had hired her on the spot after a 10-minute conversation. Small towns always needed medical professionals, and Sarah had the credentials even if her references were vague. Their routine was precise, almost ritualistic. Sarah would wake Emma at 6:30, make breakfast while her daughter got dressed. Cereal or toast, nothing elaborate. They'd walk to school together, Emma's hand in hers, both of them scanning the streets with practiced casualness. Sarah would kiss her forehead at the school entrance and watch until Emma disappeared inside. Only then would she allow herself to breathe. Work filled her days. Sick children, elderly patients with chronic conditions, the occasional emergency that required quick thinking. She was professional, friendly, but not too friendly. She declined invitations to book clubs and potlucks. She didn't date. She smiled at the right times and kept conversations shallow. Emma was thriving, at least on the surface. She made friends easily, brought home good grades, played soccer in the fall. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, said she was a delight to have in class. What Mrs. Patterson didn't know was that Emma slept with a nightlight and woke up sometimes asking if they had to leave. What none of them knew was that Emma had a photographic memory, a gift that had become a curse. Every evening, Sarah would pick Emma up from the after-school program at 5. They'd walk home together, stopping at the grocery store when needed, never varying their route. Dinner was usually simple: pasta, chicken, vegetables. Emma would do homework at the kitchen table while Sarah cleaned up, both of them comfortable in the quiet domesticity. Bedtime was 8:30, preceded by a bath and a story. Sarah would sit on the edge of Emma's bed, reading from whatever library book they'd chosen that week. Fantasy mostly. Emma liked stories about brave children who went on adventures and always made it home safe. After the story, Sarah would tuck her in, kiss her forehead, and say the same thing she'd said every night for 3 years. "I love you, sweet girl. You're safe here." Emma would nod, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "I love you too, Mom." But Sarah knew the truth. They weren't safe. They would never truly be safe. Because 5 years ago, on a cold November night in Seattle, Sarah had witnessed something she was never meant to see. She'd been working the night shift at Seattle General, leaving through the back entrance around 2 in the morning. The parking garage was poorly lit, echoey. She'd heard voices, angry and sharp, coming from the stairwell. Instinct told her to keep walking, mind her own business. But then she heard the gunshot. She'd frozen, hidden behind a concrete pillar, and watched 3 men drag a body from the stairwell. The dead man's face was visible in the dim light, a lawyer named Robert Chen, someone she'd seen on the news. The killers were methodical, professional, and one of them had turned, just for a moment, and his face had burned itself into her memory. Viktor Volkov. She'd learned his name later during the trial. Russian mob, they said. Human trafficking, extortion, murder for hire. The lawyer had been set to testify against his organization. Sarah's testimony had helped convict 2 of Volkov's associates. Volkov himself had disappeared, fled the country, or so the prosecutors believed. Witness protection had given her a new name, new documents, a new life. Sarah Chen became Sarah Chen still. It was easier for Emma that way, but everything else was scrubbed clean. They'd moved 4 times in 2 years before settling in Crescent Bay. Each time Sarah was assured they were safe. Each time she knew better. She kept a burner phone hidden beneath a loose floorboard in her closet, a direct line to her handler. She'd never used it. She told herself that was a good sign, but she checked it weekly, making sure the battery held a charge, that the number still worked. Emma knew some of it, not the details, but enough. She knew they'd witnessed something bad. She knew bad men might be looking for them. She knew that if Mom ever said we need to go right now, Emma was to ask no questions, grab nothing, and run. What Emma didn't know was that her own memory was even more dangerous than her mother's testimony. That night in the parking garage, Emma had been strapped in her car seat, watching through the window. Sarah hadn't realized until months later that Emma had seen everything too, every face, every detail. And Emma, with her extraordinary memory, had forgotten nothing. Viktor Volkov had spent 5 years building his empire back from the ashes. The Seattle operation had been a setback, nothing more. Men like him didn't stay down. They adapted, relocated, rebuilt. Now, at 45, he controlled a network that stretched from Vancouver to San Diego, specializing in the things that made real money: human trafficking, high-end extortion, the occasional contract killing for clients who could afford discretion. He ran his operations from a compound outside Portland, a legitimate import-export business that served as cover for less legitimate activities. On paper, he was a successful entrepreneur. In reality, he was a ghost, always 3 steps removed from the actual crime, insulated by layers of expendable subordinates. But Viktor had a weakness, and that weakness was pride. The Seattle trial had embarrassed him. 2 of his best men were in federal prison because of a nurse who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The lawyer's death had been clean, professional. It was the witness that had complicated things. Sarah Chen. He'd memorized her face during the trial, sitting in the defendant's section, watching her testify. She'd been calm, detailed, devastatingly credible. The jury had believed every word, and then she'd vanished into witness protection, leaving Viktor with a problem that had festered for years. The break had come 6 months ago, almost accidentally. A corrupt federal marshal, desperate for cash to cover gambling debts, had let slip information about relocated witnesses. It took Viktor 3 months and $50,000 to narrow down Sarah Chen's location. Crescent Bay, Oregon. A nothing town on a nothing stretch of coast. Perfect place to hide. He'd sent scouts first, men who blended in as tourists or fishermen. They confirmed her identity, mapped her routines, assessed potential complications. Sarah was careful but not paranoid enough. She'd built a life here, and that life had predictable patterns. Patterns were vulnerabilities. Victor's plan was surgical. Grab Sarah, transport her to a secure location, extract whatever additional information she might have, then dispose of the evidence. Quick, clean, untraceable. He'd learned from Seattle. No public spectacles, no witnesses. He'd assembled a team of 4 men, all former military, all with experience in abduction operations. They'd rented a boat under a false name, moored it at the marina, and posed as wealthy tourists interested in purchasing property. The harbour master never suspected a thing. Thursday night was chosen deliberately. Light rain in the forecast, reduced visibility. Most people would be home, doors locked, attention on their televisions. The grab would take less than 3 minutes. Sarah's apartment building had a back entrance with a broken security camera. Victor's men had ensured it stayed broken. The lock was standard issue, easily bypassed. The plan accounted for everything except the daughter. Victor had known about Emma Chen, of course. 8 years old, student at Crescent Bay Elementary. The girl complicated things, but not significantly. Children were easy to control. Grab the mother, and the child became leverage. If necessary, if Sarah proved difficult, the girl's safety would ensure cooperation. What Victor didn't know, what none of his intelligence had uncovered, was Emma's photographic memory. He didn't know that the girl had been present that night in Seattle, that she'd seen everything her mother had seen and more. He didn't know that Emma Chen was actually a greater threat than her mother had ever been, that oversight would prove costly. Victor himself would oversee the final phase, the disposal. He didn't trust his men with that part. Too many loose ends, too many potential betrayals. He'd be on the boat waiting when they brought Sarah to him. They'd have a conversation, Sarah and he. She'd tell him everything she remembered, every detail she'd shared with the prosecutors, every name and face, and then, when he was satisfied she'd told him everything, she would disappear into the Pacific Ocean, weighted down, gone forever. The authorities would investigate, of course. Missing woman, single mother, no obvious suspects. They'd question neighbors, check security footage, follow dead-end leads. Eventually the case would go cold. These things always did in small towns with limited resources. Victor had done this before. The logistics of making a person vanish were straightforward when you had the right resources. A boat, deep water, the cold Pacific currents. Nature would handle the rest. He checked his watch. 9 o'clock. His men would be in position now, waiting for his signal. Sarah would be putting her daughter to bed, unaware that in less than an hour her carefully constructed life would come crashing down. Victor poured himself a glass of vodka, expensive stuff from his homeland. He raised it in a silent toast to the woman who'd cost him so much. Tonight he'd balance the books. Tonight Sarah Chen would learn that you couldn't testify against Viktor Volkov and live to enjoy your freedom. He drained the glass and made the call. The rain started at 9:30, a light drizzle that tapped against the windows of Sarah's apartment. Emma was already in bed, half asleep, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. Sarah sat on the couch with a cup of tea, reading a medical journal, trying to ignore the low-grade anxiety that never quite left her. She heard the car doors first, 2 soft thumps, the sound dampened by rain. Her head came up, instinct screaming. This wasn't right. People didn't park behind the building at this hour. She set down the tea and moved to the window, staying to the side, peering through the gap in the curtains. 4 men, moving with purpose toward the back entrance. Dark clothing, faces obscured, professional. Sarah's blood turned to ice. 3 years. She'd had 3 years of peace, and now it was over. She moved fast, muscle memory from drills she'd practiced 100 times. Into Emma's room, hand over her daughter's mouth before she could cry out. "Emma, wake up! Don't make a sound!" Emma's eyes opened, saw her mother's face, and understood immediately. This was the moment they'd prepared for, the moment Sarah had prayed would never come. "Closet," Sarah whispered. "Behind the boxes. Stay there no matter what you hear. Do not come out. Mom, go, now!" Emma scrambled out of bed, grabbed her stuffed rabbit, and wedged herself into the closet behind the winter storage boxes. Sarah pulled coats down to hide her, met her daughter's terrified eyes one last time. "I love you. Stay quiet." She closed the closet door just as she heard the apartment's front lock being picked. Professional, just as she'd feared. No time to call for help. No time to run. She grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter, knowing it was useless but needing something in her hands. The door opened. 2 men entered first, large and efficient. They saw her with the knife and smiled. One spoke in accented English. "Put it down, make this easy." Sarah backed toward Emma's bedroom door, blocking it with her body. "Get out of my apartment." The second man was faster than she expected. He crossed the space in 3 strides, grabbed her wrist, twisted. The knife clattered to the floor. Sarah fought, kicked, scratched, tried to scream. A hand clamped over her mouth. She bit down hard, tasted blood. The man cursed and hit her across the face. Her head rang. She saw Emma's bedroom door, prayed her daughter was staying hidden. Another man entered the apartment, and a fourth. Too many. She couldn't fight them all. They zip-tied her hands behind her back. One of them grabbed her hair, forced her head back. "The girl, where is she?" Sarah said nothing. The man hit her again, harder. Blood filled her mouth. "Last chance. Where is the girl?" Through the ringing in her ears, Sarah heard it. A small sound from Emma's bedroom. The men heard it too. 2 of them moved toward the door. Sarah found her voice, screamed with everything she had. "Run, Emma, run!" The closet door burst open. Emma bolted, small and fast, darting between the men's legs. One grabbed for her but missed. Emma ran for the front door, yanked it open. One of the men was right behind her, reaching. Emma dodged, slipped past him, and ran down the hallway. Her bare feet slapped against the floor as she headed for the back stairwell. The man gave chase for a moment, then stopped, looked back at his companions. "Let her go. We have the mother. The kid's not important." But he was wrong. Emma was more important than any of them knew. Sarah watched her daughter disappear into the stairwell, felt a wave of relief so powerful it nearly knocked her over. Emma was out. Emma was running. That was all that mattered. One of the men punched her in the stomach. She doubled over, gasping. "Stupid move. Now we have to track down the girl. Leave her," another said. "Boss wants the woman. We're already behind schedule." They dragged Sarah toward the door. She didn't resist now, saving her strength. She'd seen their faces. She knew how this ended. But Emma was alive. Emma was running. And Emma was smart enough to find help. As they pulled her into the rainy night, zip-tied and bleeding, Sarah sent a silent prayer after her daughter. "Run, baby, run fast. Find someone. Stay alive." The men pushed her into a dark van. The door slammed shut. The engine started, and Sarah Chen disappeared into the night. Emma ran through the rain like her life depended on it, because it did. Her feet were bare and bleeding, her pajamas soaked through, her rabbit clutched against her chest. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away, had to find help, had to save her mother. The streets of Crescent Bay were empty, dark except for the occasional streetlight. Emma knew these streets, had walked them 1,000 times with her mother's hand in hers, but everything looked different in the dark, in the rain, when you were running for your life. She couldn't go to neighbors. Mom had always said not to trust people too easily, that bad men could pretend to be good. She couldn't go to the police station. It was too far, on the other side of town, and those men might be looking for her. She needed somewhere close, somewhere safe. And then she remembered him, the quiet man at the coffee shop, the one who sat alone every morning, who always nodded at her when Mom brought her in on weekends, the one with sad eyes and gentle hands when he'd helped her pick up her dropped crayons once, the one who moved like a fighter even though he dressed like everyone else. Mom had told her once, quietly, that if something ever happened, if they got separated, Emma should look for someone who seemed like they could protect her, someone strong, someone kind. Emma didn't know his name. She didn't know where he lived, not exactly. But she'd overheard the waitress talking once, saying something about Jack's place up on Ridgeline Road. Emma knew Ridgeline. It was only a mile from their apartment, up the hill where the houses got sparse. She ran. Her lungs burned, her feet screamed with every step, but she kept going, driven by the image of her mother being dragged away, by the knowledge that she was the only one who could help. Ridgeline Road curved up through the trees. A few houses dotted the roadside, most dark at this late hour. Emma passed them all, driven by instinct. She'd know it when she saw it. She'd know. And then she did. A small cabin set back from the road, lights on inside, smoke coming from the chimney. A rusted pickup truck in the driveway. Something about it felt right. Felt like him. Emma stumbled up the driveway, fell once, scraped her knees. She got back up, reached the door, raised her small fist and pounded with everything she had left. "Help! Please! Please help!" She pounded until her hand hurt, sobbing now, fear and exhaustion overwhelming her. "Please, please, please." The door opened. Warm light spilled out, and there he was, the quiet man from the coffee shop, taller than she remembered, eyes sharp and alert despite the late hour. He looked down at her, took in her soaked pajamas, her bleeding feet, her terrified face. "Please," Emma gasped. "They took my mom. Bad men. They hurt her. Please help." Jack Reeves had opened his door, expecting nothing more than a lost hiker or a neighbor with car trouble. What he got was a terrified child, barefoot and bleeding, with words that cut through every wall he'd built around himself. "Come inside," he said, his voice steady. He stepped back, let her enter. The warmth hit her like a wave. She stumbled and he caught her, guided her to the couch. "You're safe now," he said, and meant it. Whatever had happened to this girl, whoever had hurt her mother, they'd have to go through him first. "Tell me your name." "Emma. Emma Chen." "My mom is Sarah. She works at the clinic. These men, they broke into our apartment. They tied her up. They were going to take me too, but Mom screamed for me to run." Jack grabbed a blanket, wrapped it around Emma's shaking shoulders. His mind was already working, processing, planning. Men, plural, professional enough to break into an apartment, organized enough to zip-tie a victim. This wasn't random. This was planned. "How many men, Emma?" "4, maybe 5. I'm not sure. Did you see their faces?" Emma nodded, and something flickered in her eyes. "I remember everything, always." Jack believed her. He'd seen that look before. In the eyes of soldiers with photographic memories, people who couldn't forget even when they wanted to. "Your mother, where did they take her?" "I don't know. They had a van, dark, no windows." Jack's jaw tightened. A van, professional snatch and grab. Sarah Chen had something they wanted, or knew something they couldn't let her share. And now she had maybe hours before they got what they wanted and disposed of the evidence. Jack looked at the child shivering on his couch and made a decision that would change everything. He could call the police, do this by the book, let the professionals handle it. But something in Emma's terrified eyes told him that wouldn't be fast enough. Professional kidnappers didn't leave loose ends. Sarah Chen had hours at best. "Stay here," he told Emma. "Don't move. I'll be right back." He walked to his bedroom, to the desk with the locked drawer. His hands knew the combination without thinking. Inside, beneath the paperwork, was the silver trident pin. Below that, wrapped in oilcloth, was his car-bar knife. He hadn't touched it in 6 years. The weight felt familiar in his hand, a piece of his past he'd tried to bury. He pulled out his old phone, the encrypted one with numbers he'd sworn never to call again. But oaths had limits, and a child's mother being dragged into the night exceeded those limits. First, though, he needed to secure Emma. He called Martha, knowing she'd be awake. She kept strange hours, always had. "It's Jack. I need help." Martha didn't hesitate. 5 minutes. She arrived in 4, wearing a rain jacket over her nightgown, her white hair pinned back. She took one look at Emma and understood everything she needed to. "Army?" she asked Jack quietly, "something like that." "How bad?" "Bad enough." Martha nodded, sat down next to Emma. "Sweetheart, I'm Martha. I'm going to stay with you while Jack helps your mother. You're safe with me. I was a nurse. Can I look at your feet?" Emma nodded, already trusting this grandmother-like woman with kind eyes. Jack felt the first weight lift from his shoulders. Emma would be protected. Now he could focus on Sarah. He went back to his bedroom, changed into dark clothes, black jeans, dark jacket, boots with good tread. From the closet, he pulled out a tactical vest he'd modified years ago to look like a fishing vest. It held first aid supplies, zip ties, a small LED flashlight, tools of his former trade, repurposed for a life he'd left behind. But some things you never really left behind. He checked his knife, secured it in a sheath on his belt. No gun. He'd sold his service weapon years ago, wanting no temptation in the house. Now he regretted that decision, but there was no time to dwell on it. Before leaving, he knelt beside Emma. "I'm going to find your mother. I promise you that. Martha will keep you safe. If anyone comes to this house who isn't me or Martha, you hide. Understand?" Emma nodded. "Are you a soldier?" "I was. Long time ago." "Good." Her small hand gripped his. "Bad men took Mom. We need a good soldier." Something in Jack's chest tightened. He squeezed her hand gently. "Your mother is lucky to have such a brave daughter." Then he was out the door, into the rain, moving with purpose for the first time in years. The transformation was complete. Ghost was back. He drove the speed limit into town, using the time to think. Professional kidnapping in a small town meant outside operators. They'd need a staging area, somewhere to hold Sarah temporarily. Not a hotel, too visible, not a private home, too risky if they weren't locals. That left warehouses, boats or vehicles. Boats. Crescent Bay was a fishing town. The marina had dozens of vessels, most privately owned, some available for rent, perfect for criminals needing a mobile base and an easy escape route. He parked near the harbor, killed the engine. The rain was heavier now, providing cover. He moved on foot, staying in shadows, old instincts guiding every step. The marina was quiet, just the sound of water against hulls, the creak of rope and wood. The harbor master's office was locked, but not alarmed. Jack had it open in 30 seconds. Inside, he found rental logs, payment records. Most recent rental was 3 days ago. 40-foot cabin cruiser, paid in cash, rented under the name John Smith, classic alias. The rental agreement listed a local phone number that Jack knew was probably a burner, but there was something else. The harbor master had made a note in the margin, Russian accent, paid triple for privacy. An address followed, North Dock, slip 47. Jack memorized the information, locked the office behind him. Russian accent, that explained the professional approach. Eastern European criminal organizations were known for their efficiency and brutality. Sarah had witnessed something, testified against someone, and now that someone had found her. He made his way to the North Dock, moving carefully. Slip 47 was at the far end, isolated from the main marina. The boat was there, a sleek cabin cruiser with dark windows and no lights showing, but Jack could see the faint glow of cigarettes on deck. Guards. He counted 2, maybe 3, professional stance, rotating positions, military or former military. This was going to be complicated. Jack found a position behind a stack of crab pots, settled in to observe. Patience was its own weapon. He watched the guards, timed their rotations, mapped their patterns. Every 3 minutes they'd move, check different angles, but there was a gap, a blind spot on the starboard side where the dock met the boat. 20 seconds. That's how long he'd have to board undetected. He checked his watch. 1:15 in the morning. They'd taken Sarah around 10, 3 hours. She was still alive. They wouldn't have gone to this trouble just to kill her immediately. They wanted information. That meant interrogation. That meant time. Jack waited for the next rotation, watching the patterns repeat. Military precision. These weren't street thugs or hired muscle. These were professionals, which made them dangerous but also predictable. Professionals followed protocols. Protocols could be exploited. At 1:30, the weather shifted. The rain intensified, visibility dropped. The guards pulled their collars higher, hunched against the downpour. Perfect. Jack moved during the next rotation, using the rain as cover. He slipped between boats, feet silent on wet wood. 20 yards to the target. 15, 10. The blind spot opened. He took it. His hand caught the starboard rail. He pulled himself up and over in one smooth motion, landing in a crouch on the deck, silent, invisible, ghost. The cabin cruiser had a lower deck accessible through a hatch near the stern. Jack moved toward it, staying low. Through a porthole he could see a corridor dimly lit. No movement. He tested the hatch. Locked, but a simple mechanism. 30 seconds with his knife blade in the lock, and it clicked open. He descended into darkness, letting his eyes adjust. The corridor ran forward and aft. Voices came from forward, two men speaking Russian. He couldn't understand the words, but the tone was casual. Off-duty guards, probably. That meant the primary action was elsewhere. Aft made more sense. Interrogation rooms were typically isolated, away from crew quarters. Jack moved that direction, testing each step before committing his weight. Old boats creaked. Sound carried on water. One wrong move would alert everyone on board. A door at the end of the corridor showed light beneath it. Jack pressed his ear against it. A man's voice, accented. "Where did you send the files? Who else knows?" Then a woman's voice, defiant despite obvious pain. "Go to hell, Sarah." Jack's hand went to his knife. 2 guards on deck, at least 2 more in the forward cabin, and whoever was in that room with Sarah, 5 against 1 minimum. Not great odds, even for him. But he'd faced worse. The immediate problem was the door. Solid wood, probably locked from inside. Forcing it would alert everyone. He needed a different approach. A sound behind him. Footsteps on the stairs. Someone coming down. Jack melted into shadow beside a storage locker. A man appeared, large and thick-necked, carrying a bottle of water. He walked past Jack, oblivious, heading for the lit room. Jack moved. 3 steps, silent as smoke. His left hand clamped over the man's mouth. His right arm went around the throat, applying pressure to the carotid arteries. The man struggled, strong as an ox, but Jack held the position. 10 seconds, the man's struggles weakened. 15 seconds. He went limp. Jack lowered him carefully, checked his pulse. Unconscious, not dead. He dragged the body into the shadows, took the man's radio and gun, a Glock 19 half-magazine, better than nothing. He clipped the radio to his belt, turned the volume down to barely audible. The radio crackled. "Anton, status?" Jack waited. No response would alert them faster than a bad response. He pressed the transmit button, grunted in what he hoped was a convincing approximation. The radio went silent. Good enough. He approached the door again, tried the handle. Locked, as expected. But Anton had been bringing water. That meant someone would be expecting him. Jack knocked. 3 solid raps. The door opened. A man stood there, younger than the others, annoyed expression. "What took you so—" Jack's fist caught him in the throat. The man's eyes bulged. No air, no scream. Jack pushed him back into the room, closed the door behind him. The young man clutched his throat, gasping. Jack hit him again, harder. He dropped. The room was small, Spartan. Sarah was tied to a chair in the center, face bruised, blood on her lip. A second man stood beside her, middle-aged, expensive suit. He looked at Jack with surprise that quickly turned to calculation. "Who are you?" The accent was thick, Russian. Jack aimed the Glock. "Leave, now. While you can still walk." The man smiled. "You have no idea what you've walked into, friend." This woman testified against very powerful people, people who don't forget, don't care. Untie her. There are 5 more men on this boat. You kill me, you won't make it off alive. 5 more? Jack's expression didn't change. Then I guess we'll all have a busy night. Something in his voice made the Russian hesitate. He saw something in Jack's eyes, something that made his confidence waver. This wasn't a civilian stumbling into a situation. This was something else. "Who are you?" he asked again, quieter this time. Jack didn't answer. He moved forward, Glock steady. The Russian backed away, hands rising. Okay. No need for—" Jack pistol-whipped him. The man went down hard. Jack was already moving to Sarah, cutting her bonds with his knife. Her hands came free. She stared at him. "You're the coffee shop guy." "Yeah." "Can you walk?" She tested her legs, winced but nodded. "My daughter? Safe. With a friend. We need to move, now." The radio crackled. "Victor wants report." "What's taking so long?" Victor. That was a name Jack would remember. He helped Sarah to her feet. She was shaky but determined. "How many men?" "Too many. We're not fighting our way out. We're disappearing." "How?" Jack smiled grimly. "I used to be pretty good at that." Jack led Sarah back down the corridor, moving slowly to accommodate her injuries. The boat rocked gently, rain hammering the deck above. Every sound seemed amplified, every creak of the hull a potential alarm. They reached the unconscious guard Jack had left in the shadows. Sarah stared at him. Is he dead? Unconscious. We don't kill unless we have to. We? Jack didn't elaborate. They kept moving, reached the stairs to the deck. Jack held up a hand, listened. Footsteps above, moving toward the hatch. Someone coming to investigate. He pushed Sarah back, raised the Glock. The hatch opened. A man started down, saw Jack, reached for his weapon. Jack fired. The suppressor he'd taken from Anton's gun muffled the shot to a metallic cough. The man fell backward onto the deck. Shouts erupted above, element of surprise gone. Jack grabbed Sarah's hand. Change of plans. We go up fast, over the side. Can you swim? Not well. You're about to learn. They burst through the hatch. 2 guards wheeled toward them. Jack fired twice, forcing them into cover. He didn't try for kills, just suppression. Get them down, get them scared, buy seconds. He pulled Sarah toward the rail. Below, black water churned. 15-foot drop. Cold Pacific, 40-degree water. Survivable but dangerous. Jump when I do. Stay close to me. Hold your breath. A bullet splintered the rail beside them. No more time. Jack jumped, pulling Sarah with him. The fall seemed to last forever. Then impact, shocking cold, water everywhere. Jack held onto Sarah, kicked for the surface. They broke through, gasping. Swim for the dock, fast as you can. Sarah dog-paddled, clearly struggling. Jack stayed beside her, one arm supporting her, the other pulling them forward. Behind them, voices shouted from the boat. A spotlight snapped on, swept the water. They were exposed, visible. Jack pulled Sarah under the dock just as bullets started kicking up spray where they'd been. The dock provided minimal cover, but it was something. They moved between the pilings, hand over hand, putting distance between them and the boat. Sarah's teeth were chattering. Hypothermia would be a problem soon. They couldn't stay in the water long. Jack spotted a ladder 30 feet ahead. Can you make it? She nodded, but her movements were getting sluggish. Jack kept one hand on her, guiding her forward. They reached the ladder. Jack went up first, pulled Sarah after him. They collapsed on the dock, soaking wet, breathing hard. The spotlight was still searching the water near the boat. Men were boarding a smaller tender, preparing to search, maybe 2 minutes before they reached this section of dock. Jack pulled Sarah to her feet. My truck, can you run? I'll crawl if I have to. They ran, or something like it. Sarah limped, leaning on Jack. He half-carried her through the marina, past dark boats and empty slips. The parking lot was ahead. His truck was there, Salvation 50 yards away. They made it. Jack shoved Sarah into the passenger seat, fired up the engine. Headlights appeared behind them, the men from the boat giving chase. Jack floored it. The old Ford's engine roared. They rocketed out of the parking lot, tires screaming. In the mirror, he saw the headlights following. Call the police, Sarah said. Now that we're safe. We're not safe. Not yet. These people found you once. They have resources. Calling local cops might just tip them off. Then what do we do? I know someone. Someone who can help properly. He pulled out his encrypted phone, punched in a number he'd memorized 20 years ago. It rang 4 times. Jack was about to give up when it connected. This better be good. It's 2 in the morning. Doc, it's Ghost. Silence. Then, Jesus, Jack, I need a favor. Big one. How big? Russian mob, kidnapping. Witness protection compromise. I've got the witness, they've got 5 or 6 armed men, and they're pissed. Doc Morrison had been Jack's medic for 15 years. He'd gone into private security after retirement, built a consulting firm that worked with federal agencies. If anyone could make Sarah Chen's problem disappear properly, it was Doc. Where are you? Crescent Bay, Oregon. Heading to my place. They're following. Lose them. I'll make calls. FBI, Marshals Service, people who can actually help. You still at the cabin on Ridgeline? Yeah. Secure location? Jack thought about Emma, about Martha, about making his home into a fortress. It'll have to be. Sit tight. I'll have people there in 6 hours. Maybe less. Can you hold out that long? Jack checked the mirror. The headlights were still there, closing distance. Guess I'll find out. Jack, don't be a hero. You're not 25 anymore. Tell that to my trigger finger. He ended the call, focused on driving. Beside him, Sarah was shaking from cold and shock. Her voice was barely audible. "Thank you. For Emma. For me. Save it for when we're actually safe." Jack took the long way home, driving the dark back roads that wound through the coastal forest. He killed his headlights twice, pulled off into fire access roads, waited to see if the pursuit continued. After the third detour, the headlights behind them disappeared. Either they'd lost the tail or the Russians were being more careful. Neither option made him feel better. By the time they reached his cabin, it was close to 3 in the morning. Martha's car was still there, lights on inside. Sarah was barely conscious, shock and hypothermia setting in hard. Jack carried her up the steps, kicked the door open with his boot. Martha took one look and shifted into nurse mode. Bathroom, now. Hot shower, not too hot. Hypothermia protocol. Jack carried Sarah to the bathroom, set her down. Martha was already running water, testing temperature. "I've got this. You check on the girl." Emma was curled up on Jack's couch, wrapped in blankets, asleep but fitful. When Jack entered, her eyes snapped open. "Mom, she's here. She's safe. Martha's taking care of her." Emma burst into tears, the kind of crying that comes from hours of held-back terror. Jack sat beside her, uncertain what to do. He'd handled combat stress, soldiers' trauma, life-and-death decisions. But comforting a crying 8-year-old was territory he'd never navigated. He did what felt right. Put his arm around her shoulders, let her cry into his jacket, said nothing, just held steady. After a while, Emma's sobs quieted. "Can I see her?" "Soon. Let Martha help her first. Your mom is strong. She's going to be okay. Because of you." Jack shook his head. "Because she's a fighter. And because she has a daughter worth fighting." For 20 minutes later, Sarah emerged from the bathroom wearing Martha's spare clothes, hair wrapped in a towel. Her face was bruised, her lips split, but her eyes were clear. She saw Emma and dropped to her knees. Emma ran into her arms. Jack turned away, gave them privacy. Martha stood beside him, arms folded. "So, Navy?" "Something like that. The men who took her. They'll come back, I know. What's your plan? Wait for help, defend if they don't wait." Martha nodded slowly. "You'll need supplies. Medical kit is in my car. I've also got my old service pistol, M1911, if you need it." Jack looked at her. 70-something widow who kept her Vietnam-era service weapon. He shouldn't have been surprised. "Thank you. Don't thank me, just keep that girl and her mother alive." While Martha retrieved supplies, Jack did a security sweep of the cabin. It wasn't a fortress, but it had advantages. Single entry point in front, windows he could board up if needed, clear sightlines to the road, dense forest on 3 sides that would slow any approach. He pulled out the plywood he'd been saving for winter projects, started covering windows. The sound of hammering filled the cabin. Sarah appeared beside him, Emma holding her hand. "You're preparing for them to find us. They will. Eventually. I made calls. Help is coming, but we need to hold out until it arrives. How long? 6 hours, maybe less." Sarah's jaw tightened. "What can I do?" Jack appreciated that. No hysterics, no demanding to be taken to a hotel or police station. She understood the situation and wanted to be useful. Keep Emma calm, stay away from windows. If shooting starts, you both get in the bathroom. Lock the door, stay in the tub. It's cast iron, good protection. Emma spoke up. "I can help too. I'm good at following directions." Jack knelt down to her level. "I know you are. You got out of that apartment, found me, saved your mother. That took incredible courage, but right now the best way to help is to stay safe. Can you do that?" She nodded solemnly. Martha returned with a large canvas bag. Inside was a full trauma kit. Bandages, antiseptics, tourniquets, even 4 supplies. Beside it, wrapped in oilcloth, was the M1911. Jack checked it. Clean, oiled, loaded magazine. "You keep your weapon in better shape than most soldiers." Martha smiled grimly. "Some habits die hard." By 4 in the morning, the cabin was as secure as Jack could make it. Windows boarded, doors reinforced, sight lines established. He'd positioned supplies strategically, weapons, ammunition, medical kit, water, food. The cabin had become a small fortress. He made coffee, strong and black. Sarah joined him at the table while Emma slept on the couch under Martha's watchful eye. "I need to know what we're dealing with," Jack said. "Who are these people? Why did they take you?" Sarah wrapped her hands around the coffee mug. 5 years ago, I witnessed a murder. I testified. The man I testified against, Viktor Volkov, runs a criminal organization. Human trafficking, extortion, murder. 2 of his men went to prison because of me. I went into witness protection. They found me. How? I don't know. Someone in the system must have talked, or they got lucky. Does it matter? It matters if they have inside help. Means they might know help is coming. Sarah's face went pale. I didn't think of that. Doc Morrison is solid. The people he calls, they're solid. But we plan for worst case. Which is? Jack met her eyes. We're on our own until dawn. And Viktor Volkov is smart enough to know he's running out of time. Dawn was still 2 hours away when Jack's radio crackled. He'd kept Anton's radio, monitoring their frequency. 3 words came through, Russian-accented and cold. We found them. Jack moved to the window, peered through a gap in the plywood. Nothing visible yet, but they were coming. He could feel it. Martha, get Sarah and Emma into the bathroom, now. Martha didn't argue. She gathered them quickly, shepherded them toward safety. Emma looked back at Jack with wide eyes. You promised you'd keep us safe. I keep my promises. The door closed. Jack heard the lock click. He was alone now, armed with a Glock, a M1911, and 26 years of training. Against how many? He'd counted at least 5 on the boat, minus the 2 he'd put down. That left 3 minimum. Possibly more if Victor had called in reinforcements. His phone buzzed. Text from Doc, ETA 90 minutes, FBI en route, sit tight. Jack typed back, company arriving sooner. He positioned himself at the front window, angled so he could see the driveway and road. The grey, pre-dawn light made everything visible but colourless. Movement at the tree line caught his eye. There, a figure, dark clothing, moving tactically from cover to cover, then another and another, 4 that he could see, professional spacing, coordinated movement. These weren't thugs, they were soldiers. Jack's radio crackled again, this time a different voice. Older, commanding. Ghost, yes, I know who you are. I did my research after you interfered with my operation. Impressive record, 26 years, 3 silver stars, more classified missions than most men dream of. You should have stayed retired. Victor. Had to be. Jack picked up the radio. You should have left Sarah Chen alone. A matter of principle. She cost me money, reputation. Men. These things require response. Send your men away. FBI is 10 minutes out. This is over. Victor laughed. FBI is 90 minutes away. I have people inside law enforcement. Good people who keep me informed. So let's be honest with each other. You have 90 minutes. I have 4 very motivated men. The math doesn't favor you. I've faced worse odds. Perhaps. But you're 52 years old, alone, defending a position with limited ammunition and no backup. My men are young, well-armed, and willing to die for me. Are you willing to die for a woman you barely know? Jack looked at the bathroom door, thought about Emma's terrified face, Sarah's determination to protect her daughter. Yeah, I am. Disappointing. I was hoping you'd be reasonable. The radio went dead. 30 seconds later, the attack began. It started with suppressing fire. Bullets raked the front of the cabin, tearing into wood, shattering the few unboarded windows. Jack stayed low, counted the muzzle flashes. 2 shooters from the tree line spreading out, establishing crossfire. Classic military tactics. Pin the defender, maneuver for advantage. Jack fired back 3 quick shots at the left position. Heard a curse, saw movement. One of them was hit, not badly but enough to slow him down. The radio crackled. Victor's voice amused. First blood to you. But this is chess, not checkers. My men are surrounding your position. East and west flanks. You can't watch all approaches. He was right. The cabin had a blind spot on the north side where the forest came close. Jack had boarded that window, but boards wouldn't stop determined men with crowbars. Sound from the north, splintering wood. They were coming through. Jack moved fast, crossed the main room to the north window, shadow visible through gaps in the plywood. He fired twice through the boards. A scream. The shadow fell away, but now his back was to the front entrance. He heard boots on his porch. They were coming from multiple sides simultaneously, dividing his attention. The front door shook under impact, someone hitting it with force. The reinforcements Jack had added held, but they wouldn't last forever. Jack dropped the magazine from the Glock, checked the load. 6 rounds left. The M1911 had a full magazine, 7 rounds, 13 bullets against 4 men, possibly more. The bathroom door opened a crack. Sarah's voice. "Jack, there's a window in here. Small, but Emma could fit through. There's forest behind the cabin. She could run." Jack considered it. If this went bad, if Victor's men got through, at least Emma would have a chance. But sending an 8-year-old alone into the forest in the dark felt like surrender. Not yet, but be ready. Another impact on the front door. The frame was splintering. 30 seconds, maybe less. Jack made a decision. The best defense was unpredictability. They expected him to hunker down, defend the cabin room by room. Instead, he'd do what they didn't expect. He'd go on offense. He moved to the front door, positioned himself to the side. The next impact came. Wood cracked. On the 4th impact, the door burst open. 2 men charged through, weapons up. Jack was already moving. He fired twice, sent a mass on the first man. The man went down. The second man wheeled toward him. Jack dove, rolled, came up behind the couch. Bullets tore into cushions where he'd been standing. Jack returned fire. The second man ducked behind the doorframe. Stalemate, but temporary. More men were coming through the north window. Jack heard them moving through his bedroom. He was being flanked. Jack grabbed the coffee pot from the counter, still half full of hot liquid. Not exactly a weapon, but in close quarters, anything could be. He positioned himself where he could see both the front door and the hallway to his bedroom. The man from the bedroom appeared first, moving cautiously, professional, checking corners. Jack let him advance 3 steps, then threw the coffee pot. The man instinctively raised his arm to block. Boiling coffee splashed across his face and neck. He screamed. Jack rushed him, no hesitation. Close quarters now, too close for guns. His fist connected with the man's jaw. The man staggered, tried to bring his weapon up. Jack grabbed the barrel, twisted, heard bones snap. The gun clattered to the floor. Jack's elbow struck the man's temple. He dropped. The man at the front door fired. Bullet caught Jack's shoulder, spinning him around. Pain exploded, hot and immediate. He hit the floor, rolled behind the overturned couch. Blood soaked his shirt. Not fatal, he'd had worse, but it would slow him down. Return fire through the couch. The man at the door ducked back outside. Jack used the moment to check his shoulder. Through and through, missing the bone. Lucky. He could still use the arm, though it screamed protest. He heard Sarah's voice from the bathroom. "Jack, stay put!" Radio crackled. Victor's voice no longer amused. "You're better than I expected, but you're bleeding now. Hurt. How much longer can you last?" Jack didn't answer. Talking was for people with time to spare. He moved to the kitchen, staying low. The man he'd hit with the coffee pot was stirring, semi-conscious. Jack zip-tied his hands, took his weapon, another Glock, this one with a full magazine. Better. 2 men down, at least 2 still active. Maybe more he hadn't seen. And Victor himself, somewhere out there, coordinating. Jack's tactical radio buzzed with chatter. They were regrouping, planning their next move. He caught fragments. North side, flank, grenade. Grenade. That changed things. Jack moved fast. Grabbed the trauma kit, pulled out an Israeli bandage, wrapped his shoulder tight. Not proper treatment, but it would slow the bleeding. He shoved extra magazines in his pockets, checked both weapons. Then he did something they wouldn't expect. He opened the back door and went outside. The forest behind his cabin was dark, dense. Jack moved through it like smoke, using skills he'd thought were rusted, but muscle memory was powerful. His body remembered how to move silently, how to use terrain, how to become invisible. He circled wide, coming around to the east side of his property. From here, he could see 2 men positioned near his truck, using it for cover. They were watching the cabin. waiting for their teammates to report. Jack approached from behind, using the truck as concealment. Got within 10 feet before one of them turned, sensed something wrong. Too late. Jack's knife was already moving, silent, efficient. The man dropped. The second man heard his partner fall, started to turn. Jack was on him, hand over mouth, blade finding the spot between ribs. It was over in seconds. No satisfaction in the kills, just necessity. These men had come to murder a woman and her daughter. This was justice, military style. Radio chatter exploded. East Team report. East Team. Jack took one of their radios. East Team down, he said in a fair approximation of a Russian accent. Moving to north position. Confusion on the other end. Good. Confusion was a weapon. He moved back toward the cabin, but differently now. He'd eliminated the east flank. That left Victor and maybe one or two more. Better odds. As he approached the tree line, he saw a figure silhouetted against his cabin's lights. Tall, well-dressed, even in tactical gear. Victor, the man himself, tired of waiting, coming to finish this personally. Victor held a radio in one hand, a pistol in the other. He was speaking, calling his men, getting no responses. Jack watched realization dawn on Victor's face. His men were dead or disabled. He was alone. Victor turned slowly, scanning the darkness. His voice carried across the clearing. "Ghost, I underestimated you, a mistake I rarely make." Jack stepped out of the shadows, both weapons trained on Victor. "Drop the gun. Get on your knees." Victor smiled. "Or what? You shoot me? Then you'll never know who betrayed Sarah Chen. Never know which federal marshal sold her location. She'll never be safe. They'll find her again. And next time, you won't be there to play hero." Jack's finger tightened on the trigger. Everything in him wanted to end this man. But Victor was right. Dead men kept their secrets. Last chance. Gun down. Knees. Now. Victor's smile widened. He dropped the pistol, but his other hand moved, pulling something from his jacket. Jack saw it a second too late. Phone. Victor pressed a button. "Insurance," Victor said. "My men at your neighbor's house just received a go signal." Jack's blood went cold. Martha. Jack's mind raced. Martha's house was a quarter-mile down the road. If Victor had men there, if he'd anticipated, Jack might secure Sarah and Emma somewhere else. But why would he? Unless. "You're bluffing," Jack said, but his voice lacked certainty. Victor's smile was genuine now. "Am I? Tell me, Ghost, where is the girl?" "Emma." Victor wasn't after Sarah, not primarily. He wanted Emma. The realization hit Jack like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on protecting Sarah, on the obvious target, that he'd missed the real game. Victor saw understanding dawn on Jack's face. "Ah, now you see." Sarah Chen's testimony was damaging, yes, but incomplete. She saw faces, heard voices, but in darkness, under stress. Her testimony put away foot soldiers, good men, loyal men, but replaceable. The girl, though, the girl is different. She's 8 years old. She's a witness with a photographic memory who was present at 3 separate meetings she should never have seen. Her mother didn't even know she was paying attention, but children notice everything, don't they? Emma Chen saw documents, heard names, memorized license plates. She can identify my entire West Coast operation, my suppliers, my distributors, my protection inside law enforcement. Jack's blood ran cold. She's a child. She's a threat, one I intend to eliminate tonight. So here's your choice, Ghost. You can shoot me now, take your revenge, but my men are already moving on your neighbor's house. They won't find the girl there, of course. You're too smart for that. But they will hurt the old woman looking for answers. And then they'll search every house within 5 miles until they find what they're looking for. Jack's gun didn't waver, but his mind was spinning. Victor had outplayed him, had been outplaying him from the start. "Or," Victor continued, "you give me the girl. Let me have 5 minutes with her. That's all I need. 5 minutes to confirm she can't identify my operation. Then you can have her back, and Sarah, you can all go on with your lives. You're lying, perhaps, but you don't have time to find out. My men just kicked in your neighbor's door." As if on cue, gunfire echoed from down the road. Martha's house. Jack's discipline cracked. He moved toward the sound, then stopped. Victor was still standing there, unarmed but unafraid. If Jack left him, Victor would disappear, regroup, come back. This would never end. But Martha, the bathroom door of Jack's cabin burst open. Sarah emerged, holding Emma's hand. "What's happening?" "We heard shots." Victor's expression changed to satisfaction. "There you are. Hello, Emma." Emma looked at the man who'd terrorized her mother, who'd sent men to kill them. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She met his eyes with a steadiness that was unnerving in someone so young. "I know you," Emma said quietly. "From before, Seattle. You were at the second meeting, the one at the warehouse. You wore a grey suit and told everyone that witnesses were mistakes that needed correcting." Victor's smile faded. "Impressive memory. I remember everything, your face, your voice, the scar on your left hand shaped like a crescent, the way you pronounce business with the softs, the tattoo on your wrist you covered with your watch. I could draw it all, every detail." Sarah's face went white. She hadn't known, hadn't realized her daughter had been cataloguing these monsters. Victor pulled a knife from his belt. "Then I was right to come for you." Jack fired. The bullet caught Victor in the thigh. He went down, cursing. Jack was already moving, putting himself between Victor and Emma. "Sarah, take Emma. Get to my truck. Drive to the police station. Don't stop for anything. What about you? I'll handle this. Go. Now." Sarah hesitated only a second, then grabbed Emma and ran. Jack heard his truck start, tires spinning on gravel. They were away. Safe, at least for the moment. Victor was on the ground, bleeding, but his eyes were calculating. "Martha's dead by now. Your heroics accomplished nothing. Maybe, but you're not going anywhere." More gunfire from Martha's direction. Sustained burst, then silence. Jack's radio crackled. A new voice, American accent, professional. "This is FBI Special Agent Morrison. Site is secure. Suspects in custody. Ghost, you copy?" Doc. He'd come himself, brought federal backup. Relief flooded through Jack so powerfully his knees nearly buckled. He pressed the radio. "Copy. Primary suspect is at my location. Wounded. Needs medical and custody. Roger that. En route." Jack looked down at Victor. "Looks like your men weren't at Martha's after all." Victor's expression twisted with rage and something else. Fear. Maybe his first time experiencing it. "You can't protect her forever," Victor spat. "There are others. My organization doesn't end with me. Maybe, but it ends with you tonight." Headlights appeared on the road, multiple vehicles moving fast. FBI, Marshal Service, maybe local backup. The cavalry had arrived. Jack lowered his weapons, suddenly exhausted. His shoulders screamed with pain, his hands were shaking from adrenaline crash. But it was over. Doc Morrison emerged from the first vehicle, tactical vest over civilian clothes, face hard with purpose. Behind him came a team of federal agents, weapons drawn, professional and efficient. They secured Victor in seconds, plastic cuffs and medical attention for his leg wound. Doc approached Jack, took in the blood on his shoulder, the exhaustion in his eyes. "You look like hell. Feel worse. Martha?" "She's fine. Safe at her house with 2 agents. We got here before Victor's bluff could become real. Smart of him, though. Almost had you." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of how close it had been. "Sarah and Emma?" Agent Chen intercepted them half a mile down the road. "They're safe, shaken up, but safe." Doc paused. "The girl, Emma. Is it true what Victor said about her memory?" "Every word." Doc whistled low. "Then she's going to be the prosecution's star witness. Again, this time against the whole operation. She's 8 years old, I know, but she saw things, Jack. Things that can put away dozens of people. Trafficking rings, corrupt officials, money laundering operations. Victor was right about one thing. She's a threat to the entire West Coast operation." Jack felt a surge of protectiveness so strong it surprised him. "She's not going through that. Not again. Find another way. There is no other way. Not if we want to dismantle this whole thing. Then don't dismantle it. Protect her." Doc studied his old friend. "You've gotten attached." Jack didn't deny it. "They came to my door. They asked for help. I don't leave people behind. Never did. It's what made you a good operator. And a lousy civilian." Doc clapped him on the good shoulder. "Come on, let's get you patched up. Then you can see them. I figure you've earned that." The EMT worked on Jack's shoulder while agents processed the scene. 4 bodies, 5 arrests including Victor, a major criminal organization decapitated in a single night. The paperwork would be tremendous. The legal battles would last years. But Emma and Sarah were alive. That was what mattered. Sarah appeared as the EMT was finishing bandaging Jack's shoulder. Emma held her hand, both of them looking fragile and strong at the same time. Survivors. "They said we could see you before they take us to the safe house," Sarah said. Jack stood, ignoring the EMT's protests about rest. "Safe house? Until the trial. They want Emma to testify. Everything she remembers." Sarah's voice was steady, but her eyes showed the toll. "We're going to be moving again. New names, new lives." Again. Emma stepped forward. "I don't want to go. I like it here. I like my school. I like you." Jack knelt down, eye level with her. The movement pulled at his bandaged shoulder, but he ignored it. "Emma, you're the bravest person I've ever met. You ran to save your mother. You trusted me when you had every reason to be afraid. You faced down Viktor Volkov and didn't flinch. That's hero-level courage. I'm not a hero. I'm scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Will I see you again?" Jack hesitated. He wanted to promise, wanted to say, "Of course, whenever you want." But he'd learned long ago not to make promises he couldn't keep. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Your mom needs to keep you safe. That might mean going somewhere far away, becoming someone new. But I'll tell you something. You're going to be okay. Both of you. You're survivors." Emma hugged him suddenly, fiercely. Jack wrapped his good arm around her, felt something in his chest crack open. For 6 years, he'd kept himself isolated, convinced that connection meant danger. This girl had proven him wrong in a single night. When she pulled back, her eyes were wet but determined. "Thank you for saving us. Thank you for knocking on my door." Sarah took Emma's hand. "We should go. They're waiting." Jack watched them walk away, escorted by federal agents, disappearing into vehicles that would take them to safety, to witness protection, to new lives that wouldn't include him. Doc stood beside him. "You did good, Jack. Doesn't feel like it. Never does. But that little girl is alive because of you. Her mother is alive because of you. Viktor Volkov is in custody because of you. That's about as good as it gets in our line of work." "I'm not in that line of work anymore." Doc raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? Because from where I'm standing, you just took down a major criminal operation. Looks like you're still in the game whether you want to be or not." Jack didn't answer. He watched the taillights disappear down the road, carrying away 2 people who'd changed his life in a handful of hours. 3 days later, Jack sat in a federal building in Portland, shoulder still bandaged, giving his statement for the 4th time. The FBI wanted every detail, every moment from the time Emma knocked on his door until Victor's arrest. They were building their case, and Jack was a crucial witness. But that wasn't why he was really here. Between interviews, Doc Morrison pulled him aside. "We have a problem." Jack didn't like the look on Doc's face. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where Viktor Volkov isn't as isolated as we thought. His organization has redundancies, backup plans. And one of those plans involves making sure Emma Chen never testifies. She's in protective custody. She was, until 6 hours ago." Jack's blood went cold. What happened? "Someone inside the Marshal Service leaked her location. We don't know who yet, but it doesn't matter. 4 men hit the safe house this morning. Professional operation. They took Emma. Sarah, alive but injured. She fought back, bought Emma 30 seconds to run. The girl got out through a window, disappeared into the city. Portland PD is searching, but an 8-year-old alone in a city of 500,000 people is nearly impossible to find." Jack was already moving. "Give me everything you know." Doc handed him a file. Safe house was in the Pearl District. Emma ran north, last seen on security footage near Union Station. That was 4 hours ago. She's smart, resourceful, but she's also scared and alone. Jack studied the map. Union Station. Public place, lots of people, lots of surveillance. If Emma was thinking tactically, and he believed she was, she'd go somewhere she felt safe, somewhere familiar. But she didn't know Portland. Didn't know the city's safe spaces or danger zones. Unless. The train station, Jack said. She's trying to come back. To Crescent Bay? To me. She said she didn't want to leave. She trusts me. If she got away, she'd try to get home. Doc considered it. It's a 4-hour train ride. She'd need money, a ticket. She's 8. She's brilliant and desperate. Don't underestimate her. Doc made a decision. Go. Take my car. I'll coordinate with Portland PD, but you're right. If she's heading back to Crescent Bay, you're her best chance. Jack was already moving. He grabbed the keys, his jacket, and headed for the door. Behind him, Doc called out, "Jack, the men who took her from the safe house, they're still hunting. If they figure out where she's going, they'll have to go through me." The drive from Portland to Crescent Bay was normally 4 hours. Jack made it in 3, pushing Doc's sedan to its limits. His phone rang twice. Doc with updates. Portland PD found surveillance footage. Emma did board a train, southbound, left 2 hours ago. She'd paid cash, must have taken it from the safe house. Smart girl. When does it arrive? 30 minutes. But Jack, the men hunting her, we intercepted communications. They know about the train. They're ahead of you. How many? 3, maybe 4. Former military, well armed. They have orders to grab her or kill her. Either way, she doesn't testify. Jack pressed harder on the accelerator. 20 minutes to Crescent Bay Station. Emma's train would arrive in 30. That gave him a 10-minute window to get in position, assess threats, and plan an extraction. 10 minutes to save a little girl's life. The Crescent Bay train station was a historic building, restored Victorian architecture that served more tourists than commuters. Single platform, small waiting room, limited security. Perfect for an ambush. Jack arrived with 15 minutes to spare. He parked 2 blocks away, approached on foot. His shoulder ached, but he ignored it. Pain was information, nothing more. He spotted the first hostel immediately. Late 30s, athletic build, leather jacket that didn't quite hide the shoulder holster. Standing near the platform entrance, eyes scanning arriving passengers. Second hostel was inside the waiting room, pretending to read a newspaper. Same tell, jacket cut wrong, eyes too alert, posture too ready. 2 that he could see, at least 1 more he couldn't. Standard 3-man team, possibly 4. Jack did a tactical assessment. The station had 2 exits, main entrance and a service door around back. The platform itself was exposed, no good cover. If shooting started, civilians would be in danger. He needed to isolate the threats, take them down quietly before Emma's train arrived. Moving through the parking lot, Jack spotted the third hostile, sitting in a dark SUV with tinted windows, engine running. Getaway driver, but also Overwatch. This one had a clear view of the platform and both exits. 3 confirmed, possibly a 4th inside or mobile. Jack checked his watch. 10 minutes until Emma's train arrived. 10 minutes to neutralize 4 trained killers without causing a bloodbath in a public space. He'd faced worse odds. Barely. Jack approached the SUV from the blind spot, using parked cars for cover. The driver was focused on the station entrance, not expecting a threat from behind. Basic mistake. Professionals should know better. Jack opened the rear door fast, slid into the back seat before the driver could react. His knife pressed against the driver's carotid artery. Keys, now, no sound. The driver's hands were steady as he dropped the keys into Jack's palm. Former military for sure, knew when he was beaten. How many? Jack asked quietly. 3 plus me. 4th man's position? Rooftop. Sniper. You won't reach him in time. Jack processed this. Sniper on the roof meant they planned to take Emma from distance if the ground team failed. Clean, professional, exactly what he'd do. Where's your radio? The driver's eyes flicked to the center console. Jack grabbed it, listened to the chatter. They were coordinating, counting down to the train's arrival. 8 minutes. Jack zip-tied the driver's hands to the steering wheel. FBI is on the way. Cooperate. You might see daylight again. Your ghost. The seal. Jack paused. How do you know that? Victor talked about you, said you were a dead man. Guess he was wrong. Guess so. Jack took the driver's weapon, a Sig Sauer, suppressed, and moved toward the station. 7 minutes. The sniper was the priority. Ground team could be handled, but a sniper had too much advantage. The station's roof access was through a maintenance ladder on the north side. Jack found it, started climbing. His shoulder screamed protest. Halfway up, he had to stop, breathe through the pain, not as young as he used to be. Doc had been right about that. He reached the roof, flat tar surface, air conditioning units, good sight lines to the platform below. The sniper was positioned behind a brick chimney, rifle with scope resting on a bipod, professional setup. Jack approached from behind, staying low. The sniper was focused downward, watching the platform through his scope. Counting down, probably, waiting for Emma to appear. 20 feet, 10, 5. The sniper sensed something, started to turn. Too late. Jack's arm locked around his throat, cutting off air and blood flow. The sniper struggled, strong and trained, but Jack held position. 15 seconds, the struggles weakened. 20 seconds, the sniper went limp. Jack zip-tied him, disabled the rifle. 1 down, 3 to go, 4 minutes until Emma's train. He descended the ladder fast, probably too fast for his injured shoulder. Reached the ground, assessed. 2 hostiles inside the station, both alert, both armed. Civilians in the waiting room, maybe a dozen people, including an elderly couple and a young mother with 2 children. Couldn't risk a firefight in there. Jack needed a different approach. He pulled out his phone, dialed 911. When the operator answered, he reported a gas leak at the train station. Urgent evacuation required. The operator said they'd send emergency services immediately. 2 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up, lights flashing. Officer Jenkins, Jack recognized him from around town, entered the station, started evacuating people. The 2 hostiles tried to stay, but a gas leak evacuation wasn't optional. They had to leave or risk drawing attention. They stepped outside, frustrated, searching for alternate positions. Jack intercepted them in the parking lot, coming from their blind side. "Gentlemen, leave now while you still can." They turned, saw him. Recognition flashed. This was Ghost, the man who'd taken down Victor. Both reached for weapons. Jack was faster. 2 shots suppressed. Both men dropped with leg wounds, not fatal but incapacitating. They writhed on the ground, cursing. "FBI's 2 minutes out," Jack said. "I were you, I'd stay down." The train whistle sounded in the distance. Emma was arriving. Jack moved to the platform, alone now, threats neutralized. The train pulled in, brakes hissing, doors opening. Passengers disembarked, locals and tourists mixing on the platform, and there among them was Emma. She looked small and lost, her clothes dirty, her face smudged with tears. She clutched a small backpack, probably taken from the safe house, and her eyes were scanning the crowd with the wariness of a hunted animal. Then she saw him. Her face transformed. Terror became hope. She ran, and Jack caught her, lifted her despite his injured shoulder, held her tight. "I knew you'd be here," she sobbed into his shoulder. "I knew you'd come. You did good, Emma. Getting on that train, staying smart, staying safe. You did perfect. Are the bad men gone? Yeah, they're gone. You're safe now." Sirens approached. Multiple vehicles, FBI, local police, probably an ambulance for the wounded men. Doc had kept his word about coordinating. Emma pulled back, looked at Jack seriously. "Are they going to take me away again? To another safe house?" "Probably. It's the only way to keep you safe until the trial. I don't want to go. I want to stay here, with you." Jack's throat tightened. He wanted that too, more than he'd wanted anything in years. But wanting and having were different things. "Your mom needs you, and you need her. They'll take good care of you both. But what about you? You'll be alone again." Jack smiled, though it hurt. "I've been alone a long time. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it okay." She was right. It didn't. But sometimes life didn't give you the choices you wanted. Doc Morrison arrived with a team of agents. He approached carefully, seeing the wounded men, the neutralized threats, Emma safe in Jack's arms. "You did it. Again. Where's Sarah?" "Hospital, in Portland, stable condition. They're bringing her here." Doc looked at Emma. "You gave us quite a scare, young lady." Emma didn't answer. She was still holding on to Jack, unwilling to let go. Emma, Jack said gently, you need to go with these men. They'll take you to your mom. I'll come visit soon, I promise. You promise? I promise. She nodded slowly, reluctantly releasing her grip. An agent guided her toward a vehicle, and Jack watched her go, feeling like something important was walking away with her. 2 weeks passed. Jack returned to his cabin, to his quiet life, to the routines he'd established over 6 years of self-imposed isolation. Except nothing felt the same anymore. The cabin felt empty. The silence that had once been peaceful now felt hollow. His shoulder healed slowly. Martha changed his bandages, asked no questions, but her eyes held understanding. She knew something had shifted in him. The walls he'd built around himself had developed cracks. Doc Morrison called every few days with updates. Viktor Volkov was in federal custody, facing charges that would keep him imprisoned for life. His organization was being dismantled piece by piece. Emma's testimony would be crucial, but the prosecution was trying to minimize her exposure, protect her as much as possible. She asks about you, Doc said during one call. Every time I check in with the detail protecting them. How is she? Resilient, scared sometimes, but putting on a brave face. Sarah's recovery is going well. They're in a secure location, getting ready for the trial. When? 6 months, maybe a year. These things take time. Jack hung up feeling more restless than before. 6 months, a year, Emma would be different by then. Older, changed by trauma and time. Would she even remember him? He tried to settle back into his old life, coffee at Miller's, hardware store runs, long walks in the forest. But everywhere he went he saw reminders. The coffee shop where he'd first seen Emma with her mother. The trail where he'd found peace before they'd knocked on his door and changed everything. Martha confronted him one afternoon while he was fixing her fence. She'd broken it deliberately, he suspected, just to give him something to do. You're miserable, she said flatly. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. You helped that girl and her mother, saved their lives, and now you're back here pretending nothing happened. What else should I be doing? Living. Actually living, not just existing. You've been hiding in this cabin for 6 years, Jack. Maybe it's time to stop. I'm not hiding. Martha raised an eyebrow. Then what would you call it? Jack didn't have an answer. That evening his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Jack? Sarah's voice, tentative. His heart jumped. Sarah, how are you? How's Emma? We're okay as we can be. Listen, I'm not supposed to be calling. The agents guarding us would have a fit if they knew, but I needed to talk to you. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I wanted to say thank you, properly, for everything you did. You saved our lives, twice. And I never really got to thank you. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do. Because of you, I still have my daughter. Because of you, we're safe. Because of you, Emma still believes in heroes. Jack's throat tightened. How is she? Really? Sarah was quiet for a moment. She has nightmares, wakes up scared, but she's stronger than I ever imagined. She talks about you, about how brave you were, how you promised to keep us safe, and you did. She's the brave one. She misses you. So do I. The admission hung in the air between them. Jack didn't know what to say. The trial is in 4 months, Sarah continued. After that, we'll be relocated. New names, new life, again. I've spent 3 years running, Jack. I'm tired of running. What are you saying? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm lonely. And you're the only person in years who I've trusted completely, who I've wanted to trust. Jack understood. He felt the same way. Emma and Sarah had cracked open something in him he'd thought was sealed permanently. Where are you? He asked. I can't tell you that. Security protocols. But Jack, after the trial, when this is over, would you want to? Could we? She couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Yeah, Jack said. I'd like that. He heard her exhale, relief evident. Okay. Good. I'll find a way to contact you. After. Sarah, wait. Put Emma on. Let me talk to her. Rustling sounds. Then Emma's voice, smaller and more hesitant than he remembered. Jack? Hey, brave girl. How are you holding up? Okay. The new place is nice. They have good security. But I miss home. I miss you. I miss you too. But you're doing something important. Something that's going to help a lot of people. I know. Mom says my testimony will stop bad men from hurting other families. That makes it important. That's exactly right. And when it's over, we'll see each other again. I promise. You keep your promises. You're the most reliable person I know. Jack smiled despite himself. Try to stay out of trouble until then. I will. Jack, thank you for being there. When I knocked on your door, a lot of people would have turned me away. Not a chance. You needed help. That was enough. They talked for a few more minutes. Small things, normal things. Emma told him about the books she was reading. Jack told her about a hawk he'd seen. Normal conversation except for the weight underneath, the knowledge that this might be the last time they spoke for months. When the call ended, Jack sat in his cabin, phone still in his hand, feeling the silence press in around him. 4 months passed like a held breath. Jack worked on the cabin, took consulting calls from Doc Morrison about tactical training programs, and tried not to count days. The trial was happening in Portland, high security, minimal media coverage. Emma would testify via closed-circuit television to minimize her trauma. Doc kept him updated. She's doing incredible. Scared but handling it. Her memory is devastating to the defense. She recalls details that corroborate evidence we didn't even know we had. And Sarah? Strong, protective. She sits with Emma during every session, even though she can't be in the room, just so Emma knows she's close. Jack wished he could be there too, but witnesses weren't allowed near each other, and his own testimony wouldn't come for weeks. Then, on a Tuesday morning, his phone rang. Doc, voice tight. We have a problem, big one. Jack's gut clenched. What happened? One of Volkov's people got to a juror, bribed him to hang the jury. We caught it, but it compromised the trial. Judge declared a mistrial. We have to start over. How long? 6 months, maybe more. And Jack, the prosecution is worried. If we can't convict, if this keeps getting delayed, Emma might have to testify multiple times. They're considering offering Volkov a plea deal to spare her the repeated trauma. No. He walks on a reduced sentence, and in 10 years he's back doing the same thing. You know that. I know. But Emma's welfare has to come first. She's a child. Jack made a decision. Put me in touch with the prosecution. I want to talk to them. Jack, just do it. 2 days later, Jack sat in a federal prosecutor's office in Portland. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jennifer Walsh was 40-something, sharp-eyed and tired. She'd been working the Volkov case for 6 months. Mr. Reeves, I appreciate you coming in, but our decision is based on what's best for Emma Chen. Another trial means more testimony, more trauma, more risk. The plea deal gives us a guaranteed conviction. 10 years, out in 7 with good behavior. Then what? Then hopefully he's old and tired and stays in Russia. You don't believe that any more than I do. Walsh sighed. No, I don't. But I also don't believe in destroying a little girl's childhood to put away one criminal. There will be others. Not like Volkov. He's the head of the organization. Cut off the head, 2 more grow back. You know how this works. Jack leaned forward. Give me another option. Let me help prepare Emma for the new trial. I can work with her, help her process the trauma, build her confidence. She trusts me. You're not a therapist. No. But I've trained soldiers dealing with PTSD. I understand trauma and how to function through it. And more importantly, Emma knows I'll keep her safe. That matters. Walsh considered him. The agents protecting her won't allow unauthorized contact. Then authorize it. Let me help. Why? Why does this matter so much to you? Jack didn't have a simple answer. Because Emma had knocked on his door and trusted him. Because he'd promised to keep her safe. Because in saving her, he'd found something he'd lost. Purpose, connection, a reason to stop hiding from life. Because she deserves better than a plea deal that lets her mother's kidnapper walk in 7 years. Because I can help, and because I keep my promises. Walsh studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. I'll authorize supervised visits. You work with Emma. Help her prepare. Keep her strong for testimony. But if at any point the therapists say it's harmful, you're out. Understood? Understood. 3 days later, Jack found himself in a safe house outside Portland, being searched and cleared by federal agents before being allowed inside. The house was suburban, nondescript, designed to blend in. Inside, it was comfortable but sterile, safe but not home. Sarah met him at the door. She looked older, worn down by months of stress. But when she saw him, her face transformed. Jack. They hugged, careful and brief, both aware of the agents watching. When they pulled apart, Sarah's eyes were wet. "Thank you for coming. Emma's been asking for you every day since we heard you might visit. How is she? See for yourself." She led him to the living room. Emma sat on the couch reading a book. When she saw Jack, the book fell from her hands. "Jack!" She ran to him, and he caught her, lifted her despite his still healing shoulder. She wrapped her arms around his neck and held on like she'd never let go. "You came. You really came. I promised, didn't I? Yeah. And you keep your promises." Jack set her down, knelt to her level. "Emma, I'm here to help you, for the new trial. It's going to be hard, but we're going to get through it together. Okay?" She nodded, serious. "Will you stay, or do you have to leave again?" Jack looked at Sarah, saw the question in her eyes too. "Will you stay?" "I'm staying," he said, "for as long as you need me." Emma hugged him again. "Good, because I need you a lot." Sarah's hand found his shoulder, squeezed gently. When Jack looked up at her, he saw gratitude and something else, something that looked like hope. 6 months later, the trial concluded. Viktor Volkov was convicted on all counts: kidnapping, conspiracy, racketeering, human trafficking. Life in prison, without possibility of parole. His organization dismantled, his assets seized, his network exposed. Emma had testified brilliantly. Her photographic memory, combined with Jack's coaching on staying calm under pressure, had been devastating to the defense. She'd recalled names, dates, locations, conversations. Every detail she'd stored away in that remarkable mind had come out clearly, confidently, powerfully. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When the verdict came back guilty, Sarah had wept. Emma had simply nodded, satisfied that justice had been done. Now, 2 weeks after the verdict, they were free. The Marshals Service had offered them relocation again, new identities, fresh starts somewhere far away. But Sarah had made a different choice. She'd declined witness protection, chosen to stay in Oregon near Crescent Bay under her own name. The risk was minimal now. Volkov's organization was gone, his associates either imprisoned or fled. And more importantly, running was exhausting. She was tired of being afraid. Jack helped them move into a small house in town, 3 blocks from his cabin. 2 bedrooms, a yard where Emma could play, close enough that he could be there in minutes if they needed him, close enough that maybe they could build something normal, something like a family. Martha approved. She'd become a grandmother figure to Emma, teaching her to bake bread and garden. Doc Morrison visited monthly, bringing news from the world Jack used to inhabit and reminding him that he'd always be welcome back if he wanted. But Jack didn't want back. He wanted forward. For the first time in years, he could see a future that wasn't just about surviving, it was about living. The sunset painted the Oregon coast in shades of amber and rose. Jack stood on the beach with Sarah and Emma, watching waves roll in with the patient rhythm that had been there long before them and would continue long after.